Welcome and thank you for standing by. All participants are in a listen-only mode for the duration of today's webinar. Today's webinar is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would now like to turn the session over to your host from the U.S. Census Bureau, Adam. Adam, you may begin.
Thank you so much. So today's presentation is going to be about how you can build a better business plan using free data from the Census Bureau. My name is Adam Grundy. A little bit about myself. I'm a supervisor in the Data User and Trade Outreach branch, which is a part of the Economic Directorate. I have over 15 years experience at Census. The majority of that time has been in the Economic Directorate, working with our business data. So I'm an outreach specialist. What that means to you guys is I'm able to conduct several different presentations, webinars, or even in-person events from time to time to disseminate information about our business surveys and programs. So I lead and coordinate numerous different outreach activities, and those include webinars like today, presentations, whether they be in person or virtual. And also I've written several different articles for a series called America Counts, which is our main writing series for the Census Bureau. I also have a bachelor's degree in human studies and a certification in elementary education. Here's our outline for today's session. So I already went through my introduction, and the majority of this presentation is going to be focusing on how you can make data-driven decisions with formulating your own business plan. And the main data tool that I'm going to be demoing today is called Census Business Builder, or CBB for short. And that one's going to dive into the majority of our presentation today. So before I get too far into that, I want to give you a little bit of a brief background about how this session is going to be structured. So I'll be talking about the structure and scope of our business data and some key terms for understanding some of the different things that I'll be mentioning today. Understanding the differences of geography levels and understanding of NAICS hierarchy, and that's a North American Industry Classification System. And I'll try to spell out all the acronyms as I come to them so anybody can understand this presentation. And then we'll get into the actual data-driven business plan creation, how you can use our business data, demographic data, and a demonstration of how you can do each of those processes. And then, like I mentioned before, the majority of this session is going to be a demo of Census Business Builder, which uses examples and case studies of all the different searches you could use using that particular data tool. And at the very end, we'll have a Q&A session. So the Q&A is going to be operated through the Q&A panel of your chat, the chat function on WebEx. And if you want to go ahead, as I'm going throughout this presentation, go ahead and drop your questions in the chat, and I'll try to get to as many of them as we can as time allots towards the end of the session. All right, so now a brief background on our census business data. So the Census Bureau's economic programs are a key source for our official statistics, and you can think of them much like the structure of a pyramid. At the top of our pyramid is our high frequency surveys. These would be things like the Business Trends and Outlook survey, or also something that was stood up during the pandemic was a COVID-19 data hub. And what that did was track the business activity during the pandemic and after the pandemic as well, which merged into the Business Trends and Outlook survey. Next up on our pyramid is our monthly and quarterly small sample surveys. These provide the most timely data available. These would be things like our M3, or Manufacturers, Inventories, Orders, and Shipments survey, which comes from our Economic Indicators division. That one tracks all the durable goods activity. So for example, if you heard about the news, where it says the Department of Commerce announced that the durable goods orders for the month of June, just as a made-up example, went up 4% in the month of June. That comes from the Census Bureau. So we produce a lot of different economic indicators at the Census Bureau as well. And then we also have quarterly surveys which provide timely data available. This would be things like the Quarterly Services Survey as well. We also have annual surveys that provide larger sample sizes, and they provide the most up-to-date trend data available. So in the past, we had an annual survey of manufacturers, annual retail trade survey, and I'll be talking towards the tail end of this presentation about a new survey called the Annual Integrated Economic Survey, or AIES. And that one is going to put 7 of our annual surveys into one big survey. And that the data releases will be starting to come out this July. And then every 5 years, the censuses measure all businesses and governments that provide the most comprehensive data available. So while you hear about the news about the population census every 10 years, every 5 years we conduct an economic census as well as a census of governments in years ending with the digit 2 and also the digit 7. So we're currently in the 2022 economic census cycle. And then at the bottom of our pyramid is our administrative data, which helps us supplement and produce additional economic products. And these are some of the key terms that I'll be mentioning today. So I already mentioned about NAICS, that's the North American Industry Classification System. And on the right-hand side of your screen is the NAICS hierarchy. So if we start at a 2-digit sector level, it's a broad category of information. As you get more, as you add digits to a NAICS code, such as subsector, industry group, industry, and then finally US industry, you get much more specific. We recommend starting at the industry group level for most of our business surveys, and then working your way down to a US industry level in order to get the most data available for your particular search that you're looking for. So while NAICS is our primary data dimension, we also have a couple other terms that I'll be mentioning today. The first one is establishments. An establishment is simply a single physical location of a business versus a company or firm is used kind of interchangeably. A company or a firm is, it could have multiple establishments within that. So if we give the example of, let's say, Adam's Restaurant, okay, that would be our company, a fictional restaurant. And let's say Adam's Restaurant has locations in the state of Maryland, in Montgomery County, Howard County, and maybe Charles County. That would be 3 establishments, but only one main company. Okay. We also have different collection and tabulation levels that I'll be talking about, and also employers versus non-employers. An employer is somebody that has paid employees, whereas a non-employer has no paid employees. They're the self-proprietors out there. So most programs only cover employer businesses, but we also have a non-employer statistics program that covers our self-employed individuals. And of course, Title 13 and 26 protects our business privacy and confidentiality, so the businesses feel comfortable providing their information to the Census Bureau because they know that we're going to keep it secure. So these are some of the surveys and programs I'll be covering today. The first one is their county business patterns. This one covers employer businesses in the United States and allows us to produce cool little infographics that you can see on the left-hand side about snapshot of American leisure time industries in the United States. This comes from our county business patterns program. So again, that tracks all the business activity from our employer businesses, but then we also have our non-employers that we have to take into account for the full business landscape. So non-employer statistics covers all the non-employer businesses or self-employed persons in the United States. And that the way we're able to track that business activity is through the tax forms that they fill out. The 1099 tax form for non-employers, and allows us to track different activities such as their revenue and where their businesses are located. And then, of course, the annual business survey covers employer businesses in the United States and it includes rich data on our business owner data. So if you're looking for the number of, let's say, male restaurants in the state of Ohio, we could find that out using the annual business survey. If I wanted to look for the number of women veteran-owned, let's say, flower shops in the state of Florida, the annual business survey can tell us that as well. And then, of course, at the bottom of our slide here is the economic census, which is the official 5-year measure of American businesses. This provides comprehensive statistics at national, state, and many other local levels. So first up is county business patterns. This one covers employer businesses in the United States, like I mentioned before, published on an annual basis. The most recent data available is for calendar year 2022. However, new data will be coming out in June of 2025. This will include statistics on the number of establishments, so again, single physical locations of businesses, the employment figures, annual payroll for nearly every 2 through 6-digit NAICS code. So it goes down to pretty specific levels. The data are also published at very rich geographic levels, such as national, state, metro area, county, congressional district, which is the only annual program to do that, and zip code levels. The county business patterns also does cover the 5 U.S. territories, which allows us to track business activity in the island areas. And the data are also shown by employment size of the establishment and by LFO, or legal form of organization. Next up is non-employer statistics. A lot of times that gets kind of coincided with the gig economy, and you can see an example of the gig economy graphic that I helped produce in our outreach area of the Census Bureau. So some of these categories you can see are taxi and limousine services, couriers and messengers, real estate property managers, and even child daycare services. So um, for example, if for child daycare services, a lot of times we have these family-run daycares throughout the United States, and a lot of times they don't have any paid employees. These are non-employers or independent contractors to help them with their day-to-day operations. So the latest data available for non-employer statistics is similar to county business patterns. It's 2022. However, the new data is coming out this June as well. This will include statistics on the number of firms and their revenue for most 2 through 6 digit NAICS codes. Data for the non-employers are published by the national, state, metro area, and even county levels. It does not cover the 5 U.S. territories, unfortunately, but the data are shown by the revenue size of the firm, so again, the company, and the legal form of our organization. And next up is the annual business survey. This covers the employer businesses in the United States, and it's published on an annual basis. The 2024 ABS data will be released in the fall of 2025, with the most recent data is for calendar year 2023. This includes statistics on the number of firms, employment, annual payroll, sales, shipments, receipts, and revenue for nearly every 2 through 4 digit NAICS codes. Again, that's where I talk about the 4-digit NAICS code, starting with that and then kind of working your ways down. So the data are published at the geographic levels of national, state, county, and place levels. And the data are also shown the characteristics in the businesses of the owner. So I already gave some examples of some of those categories we would look for the annual business survey. So looking at the business owner data, the annual business survey is going to be your best bet. And then our economic census is conducted every 5 years, produces the most comprehensive economic data available, and serves as a benchmark for other economic surveys. So all those different things that you mentioned that I mentioned before in the beginning of the slides with about that pyramid, they all get benchmarked down to the economic census. So these are some of our data highlights from our geographic area statistics, or the GAS data release that came out earlier this year. So 8 million employer establishments generated 50.5 trillion in sales, employing 136.6 million people with 8.5 trillion in annual payroll in the United States. We have some other data categories in there, such as motor vehicle manufacturing and about where most of that activity is taking place, and much more data is available online and free at census.gov. All right, so now we're going to talk about after I just level set with you guys about our economic data and how we're structured. Let's dive into how you can form a data-driven business plan. So these are some of the basic steps you would take a look at for using census data in order to formulate a business plan. The first step is ideation. Okay, coming up with a great plan for a business, looking at other businesses like yours, for whether or not you're opening up a restaurant, or whether or not you're just an economic planner. I'll go through 2 of those different examples today. Or if, let's say, you're opening up a real estate location, looking at key markets in the Census Bureau's Census Business Builder data tool is something that I've written about in several different America Counts articles as well. So the second step is going to be conducting the market research. That's where our census data really comes into play. Looking at data tools like Census Business Builder, looking at data from the economic census as well, can help you conduct your market research to see what are the businesses like yours, what revenue do they take in, and also how much do they pay their employees to make sure you're going to have a profitable business that's going to be sustainable. From there, we can assist you with helping you with resources to secure funding, determine the best location to open your business, and other things using some of our data tools as well. And then the last step is, of course, opening and getting your business underway. So let's take a deeper dive into the ideation process. Thinking about some of these key questions will go a long way in developing your business plan. The first one is, will it be a business that caters to other businesses, or business to business, or B2B? So thinking about who are your customers, whether or not you're opening up, let's say, a flower shop or opening up a bakery, all these different types of things are things you should consider when you're formulating that business plan using our data tools. Who are your competitors? Who are going to be the people that would potentially take a business activity away from your business? And then also suppliers and complementary businesses. Thinking about how you can formulate your business plan in order to use the data from the Census Bureau in order to figure out what's going to be the best place to open your business and how you're going to make it profitable for the long run. And also another thing is, will it be a business that caters to the general public? So this is one example. Let's say I want to open an automobile parts and accessories store. The NAICS code's right there. Again, if you don't happen to know your NAICS code for your particular idea for a business, we can go to census.gov/NAICS or NAICS, and you can look up your actual NAICS code and help you with formulating your business plan. So let's say if it's a business to customers plan. My customers primarily live within auto repair shops who live within 20 miles of my business is one example. My competitors are other auto parts stores in my area. Okay, it's another thing to consider. My suppliers are auto parts wholesalers. These are complementary businesses that include auto repair facilities. So all these types of things, if I was opening up an automobile parts and accessories store, I'd want to consider each of these different facets to my plan. Okay. Now, as we dive into our business plan using some of our data tools, it's also important to understand census geography. This is some of the different examples of all the different geography levels that we cover in various surveys and programs available at the Census Bureau. So while we have metropolitan, micropolitan areas, regions, and zip code tabulation areas and zip codes, not all census programs will go down to the zip code level. So it's important to start at the state and county level and kind of work your way down to some of these other communities. In the data tool that I'll show you today called Census Business Builder, I will go down to the county level because most of the business data is available at the county level. And then when I look for a different demographic characteristics of the people that would actually be going to these businesses, such as the ones you may be thinking of starting or expanding, I'll go down to different community levels to see the different demographics that we have available at different geographic areas. All right, so now for Census Business Builder. So what it is it's a data tool that overlays our economic and demographic data onto a map. So much like you can see on the slide right here, if I was opening up a restaurant in the southwest portion of Virginia, I can take a look at all the different regions or the different counties that are in this red outline, and I will walk you through how you can actually develop your region based on your business needs, and I'll go over a couple of different examples with that today. So before I go into that, I want to talk about what you'll see on the dashboard when I go live. You will see a geo ranking, which you can see on the middle of your screen, which compares your region that you build or your county or zip code, whatever it may be, to the other geo rankings that are like yours in that same geographic region or state. We'll also see time series data, looking at quarterly data over time for a particular industry that you select, the geo comparison, and then also different stats. So this one was filtered on the defaults of median household income, percent high school degree or higher, all employer establishments, and the home ownership rate. But each of those things can be manipulated based on your data needs. All right, once you're finishing up with your actual region report, this is some of the things you'll actually see in that report that can help you that can go a long way in formulating your business plan. So consumer spending data. If I was opening up a restaurant, I want to know how much people in that area are spending out on food away from home. Whether it's a diner that's open for just breakfast and lunch. These are the different examples of the consumer spending data on an annual basis that households are spending in that particular region that I've selected of Southwest Virginia versus dining out for dinner. So going along with the consumer spending data that we purchased directly from Esri and put back into the data tool for free for you can go a long way in showing the power of Census Business Builder. Okay, so now I'm going to go live to Census Business Builder. The way you can get there is by going to this URL here, cbb.census.gov. Okay, so I'm going to back out of this for a moment and go live to Census Business Builder. Okay, The first thing you want to do is you want to take a look at the dashboard for the Census Business Builder. So when you get to cbb.census.gov, you'll see this main pop-up that pops up. Okay, we can either search for a location right away if you're a pretty heavy user of Census Business Builder, or you can go to the Take a Tour option. The Take a Tour option, all it does is simulates the core functionality of the data tool for either people that are new to Census Business Builder or want a refresher of some of the different things that I show you today. Okay, so for now, I'm just going to click the X on this. And let's say I'm an economic planner in the region of Harris County, Texas. So I'm going to go to, by typing in my region of Harris County, and I'm going to show you a couple of different examples of different things that I would want to consider if I was an economic planner. The first thing I want to see is I want to see how many employer establishments there are in Harris County. And I also would want to see how many non-employers there are, because in many cases, the non-employers outweigh the number of employer establishments in the United States. Okay, so after I build this region for Harris County, Texas, and I'll give you an example of how that works. So all I've done so far is selected Harris County, Texas. And I'm going to go to the detail view first before I build my region again. Okay, so Harris County, Texas is available right here in the middle of my screen. Okay, and if I go to my employer establishments total, I can see that there's 109,874 employer establishments, excuse me, versus 547,487 non-employer firms. Okay, so the non-employers, like I mentioned before, far outweigh the number of employer establishments, all the self-employed persons in the United States. So I'd want to consider both of these categories in order to figure out where I can where would be a good place to either open up a business or expand my business to other areas. So again, for the example of an economic planner, these are some of the different categories I want to look at. Another thing I can manipulate is the total revenue of employers. So the way I got to this, because the original search that I was doing over here of Harris County was a little bit delayed on my end. What I did was I also have these pre-built regions. So if you notice that some of the lag in Census Business Builder is happening, I would recommend that you just go ahead and filter on your regions you want to look at. And then from there, you can actually build out your own region and manipulate the charts the way you see fit. Okay, so I have the total revenue of employers. And again, any of these things you can change by clicking on the change variable. So in this case, for total revenue of employers, the way I got to that is by going to county, business annual, employers, and you can see the radio button of total revenue of employers is what I'm looking for in thousands of dollars. Now we also have revenue of non-employer firms. So again, taking that into consideration for this particular region that I'm building. The average revenue per employer, and the percent of workers 16 and over who commute to work is another thing that maybe as an economic planner I'd be interested in. Okay, now I'm going to go to region view to show you how I built this region. So let's say I want to edit the region that I'm doing and add a fifth county to the ones that I've selected over here in the red outline. I'm going to click on edit region. I see Harris County is selected, which is right here in the middle of my screen. I've selected Montgomery County, Texas, Fort Bend County, Texas, and Galveston County, Texas. Let's say I also want to try to add Liberty County, Texas, after I do some research. I click on that example of, let me see, save edits, and go to edit region again, and I'm going to click on Liberty County, Texas. I'll know that this is taking once it shows up in a red outline over here for Liberty County. So it's just giving it a moment, and you can see the red outline is now showed up. This where it says you can name your own region, the name of your region will show up in your business report or the report for Census Business Builder. So let's say I want to call this an economic planner Adam. Okay. And then when I'm done building that region, I can click on Save Edits. Okay. Now a couple different things you'll see in here. is our geo ranking that I mentioned before. So Harris County, by the primary variable of employer establishments, leads all these different other counties compared to how many employer establishments they have in all industries of the business landscape. If I want to compare Harris County to, let's say, Montgomery County, that's already pre-selected for me in this example of the 4 different stats that I've selected in that dashboard. But if I want to change to a different county, let's go to Fort Bend County, all I have to do is select from that drop-down list of the regions that I've already pre-selected and choose that as well. So if I want to go to Liberty County, I can also do that as well, seeing how that compares for those types of things. Once I'm ready to go to my region report, all I have to do is select this report button. And what this is doing is it's adding up all the different data for all these different regions, and I'll walk you through the different things you would want to need in your business plan for, let's say you're being an economic planner. Okay, so what this is doing is populating the different data for the different regions, for the different things, for the different counties that I've selected in Texas, and it's going to go ahead and it's going to tell me all the different things that are included in that report. So I'm giving it a moment to populate. And while that's doing that, I just also want to put a plug for the NAICS website. Census.gov/NAICS is the way you can go to by searching up your particular NAICS code. So let's say I was opening up a bakery. I would type in the word bakeries and click go. And what this would tell you is anything that with that keyword search of bakeries would show up in this NAICS code search over here. And if you want to get more information on, let's say, commercial bakeries, and click on that, it tells you all the different things that will be included in that NAICS category. Okay. So once I'm done going back to my report, hopefully it's done completing. Apologies for a little bit of a delay on my computer's end, but let me go back to this one. So this one should be the report. And if for some reason the report does not load, I'll go to a different example in just a moment, but I want to give it a chance to kind of repopulate the report. And then from there, we can go into different things you would see in that report. Okay. But again, if that doesn't populate in time, I'll give it a moment to kind of do that. So while that's repopulating, this is a different example of something that I've done with a different search of Census Business Builder. For Franklin County, Ohio, if I was opening up a restaurant or other eating place, these are different categories I would want to do in my stats creation. So for example, per household spending on alcoholic beverages, let's say I'm opening up a restaurant with a bar. That would be one of the things I would want to take a look at. The percent population and labor force would be an example of things I would want to do to see how much people are either paying their employees or even available to work at my restaurant. And if I was doing per household spending on dining out, that would be a very important thing for a restaurateur to consider as well. And then the percent 21 years and over, seeing how many people are the legal drinking age of 21 years and over in this particular county of Franklin County, Ohio, would be very important for me to see if I can have a profitable business. Okay. So since this report did not show up, I'm going to click on the back button for just a moment and see if I can repopulate this. Okay. Let me try to do this report for a restaurateur by clicking on create report, and hopefully it can be a little bit more cooperative with us in this case. So what it's doing is it's populating all the different data points for these reports functionality. And what it's going to do is it's going to tell us all the different things you'll see in that report. So while this is loading, let me go back to some of the things you'll see in that report by going to here. And some of the different things you'll see in this report once it's done loading is some of the different things about your customers, the business summary. So looking at all the different businesses about yours that would be things you would want to take a look at. For example, the revenue that they bring in, number of employees they employ, and then also business comparisons. So seeing how other sectors of the economy compared to other businesses like yours. And then finally, consumer spending data, looking at how much people spend on not only the food consumed at home, but food away from home, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Okay. Let's see if this is populated. Unfortunately, no, not yet. So my apologies again for the lag over here. Let's try it one more time by clicking on Create Report. And for some reason, it is not populating. So I apologize for that. Let's try to go back from the beginning, just so I can kind of walk you through it. Okay. So again, if I was searching for a location of Franklin County, Ohio, it seems to be a little slow. My apologies for that. There we go. All right, so all the different Franklin counties are going to show up now. And now I'm going to go to the Franklin County, Ohio. Okay. So right now, no industries have been set for this particular tab of my my industry. So I'm going to go ahead and type in restaurants to show you how I got to that preloaded tab. So if I type in restaurants under my search for industries icon here, I'm going to go to the 4-digit NAICS code that shows up. Occasionally you have to type it in more than once if it doesn't quite take quite right away. Hoping that it doesn't load somewhere else. But I type in the word restaurant. Restaurants and other eating places. Again, apologies for the lag here. We notice it's different parts throughout the day. There could be better connectivity and during off business hours. So just keep that in mind with a lot of people on our census network. But it usually is not this slow. So again, I apologize for the slight delay here. Okay, so once I get to restaurants and other eating places, and I click on Create Report, it should populate that report for me. But basically, this is different things you can do within that comparison that you'll see in that report. So different things, if that doesn't happen to load for you, you can also do different things within this stats sheet that you can take a look at for all the different things what you could do for formulating your business report. So consumer spending data, we have examples for alcoholic beverages, apparel, and services. And anytime you see a drop-down arrow, you can click on the arrow next to it and it allows you to drill down to even more specific categories in this one here. This one tells you about where the data is coming from. We also have building permits data available in there. So if you're looking for a good place to open up your business, let's say a 1-unit building units, you can go ahead and click on that and it would repopulate the data for you for Census Business Builder in each of those different categories. And again, the report unfortunately is still not loading on my end, but I will go back and figure out why that is happening with some of my web developers as well too, because it says a wait timeout for the request exceeded. So I apologize for some of the delays on this end. So just keep in mind when in the virtual environment, some of these delays do happen for the webinars and things like that. So if there's anything that that doesn't come up during this presentation, please make sure you also utilize other presentations throughout our Business Academy or Census Academy website, which is called census.gov. The way you can get there is by going to our resource library, and you can go to training/Census Academy. And let's say I was looking for different things that I could look for business and economy resources. I can click on that view by topic. We have also different data gems in here as well about how you can utilize different data tools such as Census Business Builder. So for example, we have my colleague Nadal Jabran, It uses CBB to analyze the economic effects of disasters. And also other things in here that we have for categories is also some key courses. So introduction to the Census API, introduction to census data, and many, many more data available, things available. Here's today's webinar, of course, and the business economy webinars. And then let me see one more time if it's, yes, it has finally showed up. Okay, so we have in our report section of our Franklin County, Ohio, for number of restaurants and other eating places. Again, I apologize for the delay. It's usually not this slow, but these are some of the things you can see in that report. We have top 10 imports in selected areas of Franklin County, Ohio. The top 10 impacted products for transportation and warehousing, all the different things you can see in that particular economic area. And then our consumers residence data. Um, Things I would want to consider if I was opening up a restaurant or other eating place in Franklin County, Ohio, is some of the different clientele. So I mentioned this restaurant was going to have a bar. So the percent 21 years and over, if I want to change that on my report, I can click on that little icon next to it. You can see the chart will repopulate on the right hand side. Also, percent working age, 25 to 64 years. Again, some of these people will be in the foot traffic area of your restaurant. And taking a look at other different things you can mention for the median age of the people, the residents in this area, can go a long way in figuring out the clientele that you're going to be having at your restaurant. Median household income would be a key driver of your business decision. The percent that are employed, 66.6% in this particular area, which comes from our American Community Survey 5-year estimates. Percent with health coverage and things like that may or may not be important to you. But again, if you're going to be employing some of these people, you might want to see how much you're going to have to pay these employees and also how they can get there. For example, percent of people with one vehicle available is 39%, but 22 or more vehicles is 53.8%. Anytime you want to download any of these types of data from your report, you can go to this export button and click on that and either download it as a CSV file or PDF. We recommend the PDF format if you're going to print this out as part of your business plan after you're done creating the different variables on your report. Also, we have different things from our employment characteristics and then our business summary. Some of these categories aren't showing up because either the data is not available at this particular geographical region or because of potentially if I don't select an industry, when in this case I did, restaurants and other eating places. If you select the default of, if I go back to here, my custom industries and go to all sectors, some of these business categories are not shown at the all sectors level. So making sure you have that filter on is going to go a long way for your formulating your business plan. And then looking at your workforce data, for example, all the different worker ages, get an idea of who's going to be available to work at your restaurant. And then we also have different data at the building permits level, the business comparison level, and then finally our consumer spending data that I mentioned before. So looking at how much people are dining out or food away from home, this is on an annual basis for the average household in this area. And you can see also at the bottom of these reports where the data is coming from. So if I was going to scroll up to here, I see your building permit survey. If I want to learn more about that particular survey, the links are developed right into the report itself. They'll help you go directly to each of these different survey pages and learn more about the methodology and the different things you can do behind the scenes. So you can see a lot of these different surveys that I talk about today, such as the economic census, the annual business survey, are all developed directly into the tool to make it easier for you to find the data that you're looking for. Okay. All right. So let me go to the presentation again, and then we have plenty of time for Q&A at this point too. So let me go to the slideshow again, and I'm going to go to the next steps in future census data. So these are different ways you can access our data. So for example, Census Business Builder kind of gave us some fits today. Apologies for the delay, but there are other data tools available that can get you the same data that you're looking for in case you're in a crunch. We have data available in things such as Quick Facts, which you can see on the top left screen, an icon for what that looks like. My Congressional District, which allows us to look at data by your congressional district level. My Tribal Area, on the map for emergency management, which allows us to track all disasters in almost near real time as they come up, whether it be a hurricane, wildfire, whatever it may be. Census Business Builder, which I showed you today, which is another strong tool that helps you with developing your business plan. The COVID-19 Data Hub was stood up, like I mentioned, during the pandemic, and which has been merged into the Business Trends and Outlook survey. And then we also have our data.census.gov, which is our main data dissemination platform. Allows us to build tables and things like that, depending on the data needs that you're looking for. The way you can find the rest of the data tools is by going to census.gov/data/tools.html. And again, these slides will be available to you after the fact. But the key thing to take in mind is I'm also available here to help you as well. There's been several different people after I've done a webinar that have reached out to me by my email, and I've set up personalized walkthroughs with them to go through the different things based on their specific data needs. And I'm here for you in case you ever have questions about that. So like I mentioned before, the annual integrated economic survey is coming. The new data is going to be coming out in July. The way we were doing the AIES is by looking at some of the different declining response rates and also declining budgets in the government, and looking for a way to kind of streamline some of those processes and also the way to stay relevant. So you can see 7 of the different annual surveys that you can see over here. And these would include things such as a service annual survey, annual retail trade survey, annual wholesale trade survey, and many, many more that have been put into one big survey called the Annual Integrated Economic Survey. These will replace the current annual surveys. So if you were a fan of the annual survey manufacturers, unfortunately that manufacturing data is going to be found now in the economic census as well as the AIES moving forward. This just gives you a little bit more background about why we did that. And then, of course, the collection closeout was in October of last year. And our first data release, we're very excited, is coming out this summer in July of 2025. So with that, this is another important slide since Census Business Builder was giving us a little bit of a lag today, unfortunately, with our network. So if you have any other questions that we don't address during the webinar today, during our Q&A session now, you can contact me at adam.p.grundy@census.gov, and I'd be happy to set up any individualized training or any other walkthroughs you might have about our census business data. I thank you for your time. Tony, do we have any questions in the Q&A?
Yes, we have quite a few.
Okay.
What if my county is so big and would like to see city level or smaller distance-based competitors?
So can you read that question one more time? I'm sorry.
Sure. What if my county is so big and would like to see city level or smaller distance-based competitors?
Okay, so for example, in the data tool of Census Business Builder, if I have certain things in here that I want to go down to either more granular levels of, let's say, city, town, or zip code, I'd first have to zoom in to some of these categories until I see city or town or zip code show up on my data tool. So in this particular case, city, town, if I click on that example, it's for some odd reason not showing up at that city, town level. But again, it might be something going on with our network today that is not giving me the right functionality. But again, if I was looking for some of our demographic data, I can go to some of the different things in here, such as, let's say, consumers' residence and demographic characteristics of the total population. And again, that might be more available to me at city, town, and zip code and track levels. So you can see, again, the way to do that is by going to the plus button, by zooming in on some of these categories first, and then they should show up over here, past county, city, town, zip code, and eventually track level. But again, if the data is grayed out, that means there is no data available at that level. But just to keep that in mind when you're looking for population data, you can find that by selecting your primary variable as total population.
Right, so we have a question from Richard. Does the NAICS tool help you identify the NAICS for a given company, for example, Amazon, Best Buy? Does the NAICS tool help you identify the NAICS for a given company?
It does not tell you for individual companies, and the reason for that is we have Title 13 and Title 26 protections, so we can't tell you what individual companies are in our surveys. We could tell you, however, some of the different broad categories we have for NAICS codes, depending on your search. So if I was looking for, let's say, retail, just anything with the example of retail, I can type in the word retail in our NAICS code search over here on census.gov/NAICS, and you can see all the different things that have a keyword of retail would show up with the different NAICS code next to it. If I want to dive into, let's say, music retailers, 449210, you can click on that hyperlink directly to the left of it, and it tells you everything that would be included in that with some key examples in order for you to figure out, some of the like businesses are in there, but again, we cannot tell you individual business names, unfortunately.
We have more questions. Does the census cover the nonprofit sector? Various nonprofits serving various causes? If so, is there a link to get that data?
Yeah, there is some nonprofit data, I believe, in some of our annual programs and surveys. Again, let me put up my contact slide just in case we don't have time to walk through it today. But send me an email and with your specific questions for the types of nonprofits you're looking for, and then maybe we could set up an individual call, either a Teams call or Zoom chat type of thing, in order to help you find the data you're looking for. Because I don't want to misspeak on some of the different nonprofits that we might have it in our annual surveys and programs.
Answer. Here's another question, James. Having trouble finding my sector, how would I get information on distributors, alcohol, beverage, food distributors specifically?
Okay, so if you're looking for an actual sector of an example over here, I can go back to my main census.gov/NAICS category. This is updated every 5 years, and what we can take a look at is some of the different reference files in here, the 2022 NAICS. These are the sectors that you can see in here. All I did was click on reference files and then go to 2022 NAICS. These are the main sectors, which again is a 2-digit NAICS code for all the different things in here. So, and most likely, depending on the industry that you have for alcohol, it would most likely be in the manufacturing location. Can you give me the details of that one again, Tony?
It was, let me scroll up.
I think you said distributors or something.
Distributors of alcohol, beverage, food distributor specifically. Alcohol, beverage / food distributor.
Okay, so that would probably be in some of our accommodation food services, depending on what types of alcoholic beverages uh, and for example, this one has drinking places of alcoholic beverages. So this is different things that would service some of those different locations. But again, if you can't find the data you're looking for, and you look in these categories of, let's say it's 7224, and you still can't find what you're looking for, just go ahead and send me over an email, and I can happily walk you through it and make sure that you are satisfied with the search that you're doing from the census data.
We got just two more. Is the
Okay.
database available for download so that we can do some AI learning on the database?
I don't know so much about the AI learning, but I do know that you can do anything that you see on the census.gov site that has a download icon next to it, whether it be a data tool for Census Business Builder, data.census.gov. Once you download the data and you know how to program it yourself into, let's say, an AI programming, I'd say you're more than welcome to do that. I would say the interpretation of that data is going to be something that we would kind of be wary of. But if you ever have any questions regarding some of the different things, or you want to maybe verify some of the data points that you came up with when downloading it and putting it into AI software, I'd be happy to help with any of that, or connecting you with some of our either mass stats or even program area experts to make sure you're getting the right interpretation of that data. But I would be cautious of using that.
This is like more of a scenario type thing. If I
Sure.
am a bank So if I am a bank and I would like to develop products and services in an underdeveloped area, how do I go about finding that? Let's say for Richmond, Virginia.
Sure. So let's say I'm looking for that particular area of Richmond, Virginia in Census Business Builder. What I can do is I can type in my location. And again, Richmond, Virginia. And again, I apologize for the delay here. I can do the overall metro region of this. I'm going to go ahead and click on where it says the primary variable is establishments. And I'm going to go ahead and select that as primary variable, consumer residents, and let's say total population. Okay. From there, there's no secondary variable available at this moment because I haven't selected the secondary variable. But now you can see some of the different things in that Richmond metro area compared to other metro areas across the country. So this one is just by total population. If I continue to zoom in to some of these other communities in here, you can see that we can see some of the different other areas over here. Now city and town is showing up. I can also go down to zip code level for these population areas. And then we even have something available at the census tract. So you're looking at for different neighborhoods, I think was their question. The census tract would be your best bet for that. These one tell you the name of the census tract. And then if you're looking for underserved parts of the population, looking at different things you can filter within the total population to tell you more about those census tracts. So this one tells you obviously the total population is a legend by the color. So the dark blue is the larger parts of the population. So if you're looking for somebody maybe on underserved part of the population with smaller amounts, you would look for this kind of like whitish color over here. And then once you click on that, it tells you the total population and how it compares to other tracks around that area. So I'd recommend starting at this the county level from there, work your way down to the zip code and track level from there, and then see what other categories you can come up with from our stats over here. So for example, median household income is selected, percent high school degree and higher. But again, if I want to change any of these, I can click on change variable and look at different socioeconomic characteristics, employment characteristics, things like that. Or let's say a potential risk factor of percent no vehicles available. So I can take a look at that. So measures of like that, of measures of social vulnerability, we call them, would be examples of things you could take a look at within our data tools, such as Census Business Builder.
This is a quick one that
Mm-hmm.
came in. Where are you? Let's see. How many counties can we have in our region? Is there a limit?
I don't know if there's a limit. What it would tell you is if you start to build in a Census Business Builder from the beginning, and let's just go to the state of Maryland where I'm from. I don't think there is a limit on your region. The way you could do it is by going to the county button to select all the counties in this particular area. You'd want to select next from there region view and then click create region. From there, once the counties start to populate on the map, you can start to build your own region. We also have pre-built regions in here too, whether it be like a metropolitan area, things like that. Once I zoom in a little bit, it's probably not liking me too much with the level of geography that I had zoomed out to. But if I do that and I start to select my regions by saying, let's say Montgomery County here, Howard County over here, um, there's also the other tools available to you, such as drawing a polygon, a rectangle, or even like a circle, like lasso around certain regions. So if you're looking for like the metropolitan area of DC and you want to do those regions, I don't think there's a limit, but it might tell you after after selecting a bunch of different counties and things like that that you may have reached your limit. But as far as I know, I don't think there is a limit.
Great. I'm gonna come. There's two questions that came in. I'm gonna combine them
Sure.
because it's basically the same topic. How do you find households, with demographics? Basically, one asked with children under 5, and someone asked with 55 and over,
Yeah.
by zip code or county.
Okay, so this one talks about by county level. The way you would find it in the report of Census Business Builder is in our demographic characteristics. So we have things such as percent under 5 years, which is part of the demographic characteristics. So we have over here, percent under 18 years, and then percent 65 and older. So these are the main categories we have in our demographic characteristics, which come from our population survey called the American Community Survey, the 5-year estimates. So depending on which search you do, whether or not you search at the county level or the, let's say, even as far as like a zip code level, these new categories will show up based on whatever variables that you put into the data tool that you're looking for. So for example, for Census Business Builder, if I go all the way down to a track level and I select that track and then I clicked on the create report button, if that were showing up for me, it would tell me all the different data that I've selected for that region that I've already selected. But if you have any questions about it, I'd be happy to address them.
Great. We'll take one more question and then we'll wrap it up.
Sure.
Since you're in the tool there, is there a way to identify how many businesses are in a city?
In a city, kind of yes and no. We recommend starting at the county level for businesses. The reason for that is because most of our annual programs and surveys do not publish at the city town level, with the exception of like let's say economic census and things like that, which are published every 5 years. So we recommend starting at the county level and then kind of working your way down to see what data is available from there. So kind of play around with it, I would say. If you have any questions about whether or not you've gone too far, some of these grayed out areas will start to show up, especially when you get down to zip code and track level. There's very little business activity available at that particular level of geography because we have to protect the individual businesses that respond to our surveys, and that's the reason for that.
Great. If you just want to put up the slide with your contact
Sure.
info, someone else
Absolutely.
asks for it, and then we're all done.
All right. I appreciate everybody bearing with me with some of the lags of our data tools. But again, that was kind of an odd situation, but we got through it, and I'll be here to address any other questions you might have after the fact through individualized trainings and presentations for you guys.
All right, so I also copied that email address in chat.
Thank you.
So thank you, Adam. This concludes today's webinar. You may disconnect at this time.